What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys my Season 5 landslide build here for the Druid class that I like to call Rockfall. So originally this was supposed to be my Stormclaw build for Season 5, but unfortunately I did lose that character while fighting the Tormented Beast in the Ice, and I actually think it's something wrong with that fight, so if you are playing hardcore, do watch out. I had my Stormclaw Druid able to tank through multiple hits from Waves of Lilith while having debuff stacks on my character, and I also had already finished the Tormented Galvanic Saint. However, when I went to fight the Beast in the Ice, when the mob spawned on the second phase of the Tormented Beast in the Ice, one of the monsters just randomly ran up and hit me one time and one-shot my character with 0 stacks and full health with a barrier on top of that. So like I said, if you are playing hardcore, do be careful with the Tormented Beast in the Ice fight and be aware that there could be something going on with the amount of damage output that fight is actually doing. Now, a link to that Stormclaw build will be down in the description of this video if you are interested, and go ahead and leave a comment and let me know if you would just rather me go ahead and make the build video instead of just waiting until I get gameplay footage. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about what you guys are here for, and that is the landslide build for Season 5. So starting off, I would like to go ahead and show you the gear I was using to complete all of that gameplay footage you've seen at the beginning of the video, and I also want to mention that I did not have the Wild Heart Hunger boots on at the time, so I was just using a normal pair of boots with the ballistic aspect on, so do be aware that I can output a lot more damage, especially if I do find a much better pair of Wild Heart boots on this character. So as you can see here, we have a basic Facilities Prayer with 4 Masterwork ranks. We have an Insatiable Fury with a really good greater affix to the Earth Sign Strength bonuses, so I got pretty lucky there, as well as 8 Masterworking ranks here. Then we have just a standard pair of gloves with a greater affix to Max Life. And then I did get pretty lucky here, and I got a pair of pants with a greater affix to armor as well as max life, so pretty happy with these pants. Then for our Wild Heart Hunger boots, like I said, I did not have these on when I was recording the gameplay. However, not a very good pair of Wild Heart Hunger boots. I had a really good pair, but I lost those when my Stormclaw Druid died. Then for our weapon, I just picked this one up out of my chest. It is just a standard sword with a greater affix to max life. Same thing for our totem, nothing too special here. Then for our Malneuric ring, I did get lucky and get a greater affix to the movement speed. However, I had a better Malneuric ring, but I lost that one as well on my Stormclaw Druid. Then we have a pretty decent Earthbreaker ring. I could probably get a better roll on that attack speed. However, I'm pretty happy, especially with that chance to cast landslides twice. And then lastly, for our amulet, we did get lucky and get an amulet with a greater affix to max life as well as a max cooldown reduction roll. And then we did go ahead and roll on some crit chance here. So as you can see there, guys, lots of improvements to do on the gear as well as getting greater affixes and masterworking to be done. But let's go ahead and look at the skills for this landslide build. So for our primary skill, we are using landslide. For our secondary skill, we are using cataclysm, and that is because we are going to be using the Malneuric ring. Then we are running our earthen bulwark to give us a crowd control break, and then we are using poison creeper to apply poison, and then we're using storm strike to generate resources when our cataclysm is down. And then last but not least, we are running cyclone armor because it got a pretty hefty buff this season, and that extra damage reduction from non-physical sources really helps in the end game. Then moving down to the spirit boons, we're running Wariness on the Deer as always. We are spirit bonded into the Eagle, and we're running Iron Feather as well as Avian Wrath. And then for the Wolf, we are going to be running Pack Leader because we are using the Subterranean aspect. However, if you're not using Subterranean, just go ahead and run Calamity so you get that extra ultimate skill uptime. And then on the Snake, we are running Calm Before the Storm to reset our ultimate so we can keep up that infinite resources as well as that big 100x multiplier we get from Malneuric Ring. Moving down to our aspects and uniques, we're going to be running Vasili's Prayer on the helmet, Insatiable Fury on the chest piece, we're using the Subterranean aspects on the glove, then we're using the aspect of Might on the pants, then Wild Heart Hunger boots because of that massive multiplier it has this season, and then the aspect of Retaliation on our one-hand mace. Onto the amulet, we're running the aspect of the Aftershock. Then, like I said, we are going to be using the Malneuric ring, and then obviously we're going to be using the Earthbreaker ring because this is a landslide build. And then we are using a one-hand mason totem, so we are running the aspect of Changeling's Debt on our totem. Now, down here in this text box, I did go ahead and add a little bit of information, so do give it a look over. It just pertains to if you decide to run a two-hand mace or if you're running Earth and Might with this build. Now, I did go ahead and incorporate an Uber variant for you guys, so if you do have these items, you can just go ahead and swap out your Insatiable Fury for Turiel's Might, and if you want to, you can swap out your Malneric Ring for a Ring of Starless Skies, so you don't have to balance that uptime on your Cataclysm. Now moving on to our gear affixes, on the gloves we're running ranks to Landslide, Critical Strike chance, and Max Life, as well as damage to crowd control enemies and a lucky hit chance to stun or freeze or immobilize for the Temperings. Then on the pants, running Max Life, Armor, and Willpower, and then we're using a defensive tempering of Max Life, and then a utility tempering, again, of Lucky Hit Chance to Stun, Immobilize, or Freeze. Now, this tempering for Max Life is optional. This can be whatever you choose to build up for survivability. I personally just want to go as much Max Life as possible for this setup. Then moving on to our mace, we are going to be using Max Life, Willpower, and Overpower damage. And then for our temperings, we're running the Earth Critical Strike chance, as well as chance for Landslide projectiles to cast twice. And we are going to be trying to get as many Masterworks into that tempering. Then for our totem, we are running Max Life, Crit Chance, and Cooldown, and then we are going to be picking up damage to crowd control enemies, as well as, again, the chance to cast Landslide projectiles twice. And the reason why we're grabbing up damage to crowd control enemies is because we want to max out our Earth and Devastation node. Then last but not least, for our amulet, we are running Crit Strike chance, cooldown reduction, ranks to Envenom. We're using the mobility tempering for movement speed, as well as more damage to crowd control enemies. Now, I do want to mention briefly that if you do manage to cap out your Earth and Devastation node and you have well over the requirement for your damage to crowd control enemies, go ahead and swap one of these temperings of damage to crowd control enemies to Earth skill critical strike chance. Now moving on to our gems, we're running emeralds on the weapon. You can also run rubies if you would prefer. Then we're running rubies on the armor, and then diamonds on our amulet and both of our rings. Now onto our skill tree, we're just going to go over this briefly. So we are running Storm Strike and just grabbing that first point into Storm Strike so we can unlock our core skill board. Then we're running 5 points Landslide into Primal Landslide. We're picking up 1 point Heart of the Wild into 3 points Wild Impulses, and then also 1 point Predatory Instinct into 3 points of Iron Fur. Then onto the defensive skill tree, we are picking up 1 point Earthen Bork and then picking up the passive that gives us Unstoppable. And then we are going to be picking up 1 point in Cyclone Armor. Now for the companion skill tree, I am happy to say we are only grabbing 1 point into Poison Creeper here. Thank the Lord, we finally get to use more skills on our bar. Now down to the Wrath skill tree, we're going 1 point Elemental Exposure, and that's just so we can max out Endless Tempest, so we have a large uptime on our Cataclysm. Then we're grabbing 1 point Crushing Earth into 3 point Stone Guard. We're grabbing 1 point Neurotoxin into 3 points in Venom. And then we're picking up 3 points Mending, mainly for that big HP boost we get here. And then we're also picking up 3 points Provocation. Now, if you remember back to the gameplay footage I showed you, that massive influx of damage that you see the bosses take is actually from an Overpower Landslide proc. So the biggest part of this build when you are bossing is to make sure that you do not waste your Provocation proc on any other skill except for a Landslide. So just be mindful when you're playing this build to always time your landslides with your provocations, so that way you're maximizing your damage. Moving down to the ultimate skill tree, we're going 3 points Defiance into 3 point Circle of Life for some survivability. Now, if you're not playing hardcore, you can go ahead and take these out and put them into some damage passive if you would prefer. Then we are picking up our Cataclysm ultimate here, as well as both passives, so that way we can apply vulnerability, and we can also have that extended duration on our Cataclysm. Then we are going to be picking up 3 points Quick Shift, as well as 3 points Heightened Senses, and then we are picking up 3 points Defensive Posture. Now moving down to our key passives, we are going to be using Earth Sign Strength, and I highly recommend that if you're playing hardcore like I am, to stick with Earth Sign Strength. Trust me, that extra health comes in handy. Now, if you're playing softcore, it is perfectly fine if you swap over to Earth and Might. In fact, you might actually like it a little bit more, because when Earth and Might procs, you get a nice full pool of resources, and 100% crit chance. You can never go wrong with that. So that is definitely something you guys can try out if you would prefer that route instead. Now moving on to our Paragon board. For our starter board, we're running Fang and Claw. Then for our second board, we're grabbing up Constricting Tendrils and slotting in Earth and Sky. Then onto our third board, that is going to be the Survival Instincts board, and we are going to be picking up that Legendary node as well as slotting in Tectonic here. Then for our fourth board, that is going to be Earth and Devastation, and we are slotting in Outmatch here as well as picking up the Earth and Devastation node. Then number 5 will be Ancestral Guidance, and we're slotting in Werebear here. Now, I personally like Werebear for that extra damage reduction we get this season, a total of 15% damage reduction while you're in Werebear form. However, However, if you would prefer, you can obviously slot in something like exploit if you're playing softcore to give you a little bit more damage instead of damage reduction. Then on to our sixth and final board, that is the Inner Beast board, and we are going to go ahead and pick up the Legendary node here, and that is just so that way we can maintain our Cataclysm more consistently. Now, there will be downtime until you optimize your gear fully. However, with all of the shapeshifting we do to maintain our buffs from our gear pieces as well as our skill tree, we're getting quite a few procs off of this node, and honestly, I probably wouldn't try this build without it. And then for our last glyph, we're slotting in Spirit. But that's really it for the video, guys. That is my Landslide build for Season 5, and like I said, my next build video will be covering my Stormclaw setup. However, if you are interested, a link to that build is down in the description of the video. I just have to finish remaking that character. And I do have quite a few builds planned for this season, including a Pulverized build, a Shred build, and a Pure Wolves build. So if you feel like I've earned it and you are interested in my content, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It does mean a lot to me personally, as well as it helps my channel continue to grow. But as always, guys, if you have any questions whatsoever, or you just want to let me know how you're enjoying the season or what your favorite builds are, go ahead and leave that down in the comments below, and I will answer them as soon as I see them. And as always, I hope you guys are having a great day or a great night, depending on wherever you're from, and peace out, guys. I will see you in the next one.